We want to get people right when they come in the door, help them erase any bad habits they have, and really just give them that fresh, strong foundation to build off of as they go into their learning journey at Sprinklr.
Welcome to All Onboard, the definitive podcast for professionals seeking to deepen their understanding of the employee onboarding process. I'm your host, Thomas Kunjappu, founder and CEO of Cleary. Today, we are thrilled to have Kaylea Bowers, a project manager and talent development expert with a passion for creating meaningful work experiences. As the cultural onboarding program lead at Sprinklr, Kaylea ensures new hires feel connected and supported from day one and beyond. With a unique perspective on balancing personal experience with organizational culture, she helps employees show up authentically and feel valued. And I'm excited to have this conversation. Kaylea, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. To kick things off, I'd love to just talk a little bit about this concept of personalization, right? How do you balance, for example, what the organization is trying to do in the onboarding process with what you need for specific employees where they might have different particular needs?
Yeah, so we really try and focus on individualization and encouraging employees to show up authentically and celebrating the things about our employees that make them themselves. Really, that has nothing to do with the role they're coming into, but it keeps things real. And our culture is built to support that. So we try to really do both at the same time and get them the things they need to get off on the right foot, but also to get to know them and encourage them to connect with each other and to show up authentically.
Yeah, so that sounds great. That's the magic that everyone's looking for. So tell me more in more detail. How do you balance that, and how do you create these like tailored onboarding plans for individuals?
Yeah, sure. So during your first week at Sprinklr, you have a chance to meet and connect with other new employees who are starting on the same day as you. And we encourage employees to spend some time getting to know each other and connecting with folks from all over the globe. As far as the onboarding plan goes, you get from your direct leader a plan for your first 30, 60 to 90 days at Sprinklr. And it includes both, there's standard things that every employee goes through regardless of where you sit in the organization, but it's delivered by your direct leader who knows what is needed for you, for your role, for their specific team. And so you get kind of both in one resource. And we find that it really gives our new hires a clear direction on what they can expect from their onboarding journey.
So it sounds like there's a heavy lean on managers and individual managers and leadership to provide that individualized 90-day plan. But then where do you come in, which might be more on the central onboarding kind of journey, right? So what does that part look like that is kind of that everyone, relatively speaking, shares?
Exactly. Yeah. So the culture and talent team has a few different touch points along the onboarding journey to encourage folks to meet each other and to really build a strong foundation when it comes to our culture, because as we all know, the culture is not something that just happens to you. Once you work at the company, you're a part of it too, and you need to have it built into your foundation to make it real for others. During your first week, all of our new hires across the globe attend a kickoff to our Sprinklr Happier program, which is a really cool, unique thing that we have at Sprinklr. It is directly correlated to our strategy and our company's commitment to making Sprinklr a place where high performers want to be. And this program, we have an executive health and performance coach that built this program centered around the latest in neuroscience, peak performance, and also Eastern yogic tools. So it's a program that is actually 21 days we send all of our new employees through. And once they get out on the other side, they're feeling higher energy levels, feeling increased self-awareness, increased productivity. And people have even said things like being better parents. And so that really ensures starting off on the right foot and ready to jump into their learning journey. And that's just one of the examples of how we encourage connections and also try to be really intentional about setting our new hires up for success.
That's fascinating. I've heard a lot about different types of programs. So this sounds like it's very much about mindfulness and getting people into that state even when they're starting this role. And did I understand that right? Was this something that was introduced for employees generally, and then it got pulled into the onboarding process because you thought that could be a point when you can, maybe someone's coming in when you're obviously taking a new role is a pretty big deal in life overall, but maybe then this program helps you also reset and be mindful about where you want to go more broadly?
Yes, exactly. This whole idea originated because our program manager, Neha, was working with Sprinklr's CEO, Rajavi, one-on-one, just completely separate from a corporate setting. And it had such an effect on his life that he said, oh my gosh, I want all of my employees to have access to this. And he actually hired her and had her build the program. So you're right that it did start just as a resource for employees. But once you get into the rigor and all of the learning, and then once you're done with onboarding and you're in your day to day, you've already started to create bad habits for yourself to not really be in the right. We want to get people right when they come in the door, help them erase any bad habits they have from their previous life, and really just give them that fresh, strong foundation to build off of as they go into their learning journey at Sprinklr.
That's incredible. I strongly agree about the fresh reset. Every time you make a big change in life, whether that's moving to a new apartment or city or getting married, having a baby, having a new job, of course, it's a moment where new habits will get created. And so it's a moment where, I always, when I talk to friends, it's a time to lock in hopefully positive new habits because a lot of things are just changing around you, all these cues. And then, of course, it's amazing if a company is helping you also set those habits in the right way. And that's incredible because
Exactly.
I've never heard of this conceptualized broadly as part of an onboarding program. You do see this as part of like executive coaching or in individual groups for employees that are later on in their journey, but that's amazing. So then it's just in parallel or it's just a part of the onboarding program. So you come in on day one and this is one of the things that's offered to you over those 21 days.
Yeah, so there's an initial live kickoff session that happens during week one, and then you are enrolled into the 21-day program that happens after you attend the kickoff.
That makes a lot of sense. So you talk about how this program evolved from, in this case, the CEO having a personal outcome and, wanting to bring that more broadly to the company. And that makes me like curious just about leadership in general. So how do you work with leadership at Sprinklr to bring them into the onboarding process in general?
Yeah, definitely. First off, we are incredibly lucky at Sprinklr to have some really incredible leaders that really care about their incoming people. And so we actually have what we call our Splash program. This is a 2-day cultural onboarding program that we rope our leaders into helping us with. So there are several different senior leadership members who are in charge of delivering content to help employees kind of figure out things that normally when you join a new company, you kind of just figure out as you're running into it. So we are very intentional about delivering our operating rhythm. How often do we do things like town halls and all hands? What is our go-to-market strategy? And we have a really great finance discussion with our VP of finance who walks you through kind of a past, present, and future of Sprinklr from that financial lens. So there's a lot of really intentional content that we deliver during those 2 days. Our executive leadership team will come in during those 2 days and they do an open ask me anything style panel where us as facilitators really take a step back and we tell our employees, if you're comfortable asking this question to our executive leaders, you can ask anything you want. They don't We don't vet the questions before they ask them. And it's a really great way for our leaders to showcase our culture just exactly as it is, starting at the top, because that's where culture starts. But also, new hires always talk about how the fact that they take the time, that our executive leadership team, very busy people, take the time to come in. They do this once a month with our new hires, to come in and spend about an hour kind of doing that really unscripted conversation with our new hires is really meaningful.
That's awesome. So then taking a step back at just the general structure, that I'm curious, because we talked about a couple of programs, right? But just from the moment someone, starts, sounds like there's a program which you're very much involved in facilitating. And then there are some things that kind of go ongoing. For example, the Sprinklr Happier program, which might be several weeks in the background. And then there's, of course, the handoff to the managers and then that 90-day plan. Can you just tell me generally how you think about it over that 90-day period? Like your involvement, like in the beginning and, or even just let's call it the central onboarding program and the handoffs.
Yeah. So from the get-go, on your first day, if you were to join Sprinklr as a new employee in the US, you would meet me on your first day. I take new hires through the immediate needs. What do you need to know? IT setup, benefits, payroll, all of the kind of the HR basics. And we have leads in the other regions who do the same. Then during week 1, we work closely with our managers to make sure that the new hires are just getting situated. They're meeting each other. They're attending their first team meeting, getting their first initial assignments, and really being able to wrap their head around what the expectations for their role are. Included in that is receiving that onboarding plan from their leader that we mentioned earlier in our conversation. We have compliance trainings, and also that Sprinklr Happier program kickoff happens in week 1. And so after you've got your foundations from your first week, that's when, right after week 1, it starts to just kind of depend on where you sit within the organization. And then we try and catch folks sometime between week 2 and week 4 to get them into that splash, that cultural onboarding program that gives them kind of the double click into things that we want to make sure they are receiving very intentionally.
Hey, it's Thomas here. Hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Are you curious to see how your onboarding program stacks up against the industry's best? Check out Cleary's latest onboarding assessment tool. It offers in-depth analysis and customized recommendations to enhance every aspect of your employee onboarding, from pre-boarding to company culture integration and more. Whether you're just setting up your onboarding program or you're a CHRO at a Fortune 100 company, this assessment can improve your onboarding know-how. Check it out at gocleary.com/onboarding-assessment. Again, that's gocleary.com/onboarding-assessment. You can also find the link in the episode notes. Now back to the show. That seems like an explicit choice to have that part, that splash program, to be like a little bit after. So like there's the handoff to the managers and you're kind of getting into the work a little bit, and then you kind of come back out to that level. I wonder if there was an evolution there in terms of like how, I'm curious if there have been any lessons you have about programming and sequencing and anything that you feel like works particularly well that you would recommend.
When we have a new hire audience, you have to know them really well and understand kind of what their experience is from that point of view, which I spent a decent amount of time when I joined Sprinklr actually kind of paying attention to how I felt, what I was missing, what the experience was like. And we really focus on, when we are looking at what content we want to give at what point. People are coming to us all the time saying, can we add this into the day 1 session? Can we add this into Splash week 3 or 4? We need new hires to know this. We take a pause and we say, we need to make sure we are giving them the right information at the right time. Because when you join a new company, it's like drinking through a fire hose, right? There's so much new information. And from a learning perspective, we need to make sure that we are not just pelting them with information and that they are able to digest it. So we start with the need to knows, compliance related tasks, making sure they're getting paid, and then being able to kind of then go into the less immediate needs that we can then come back and double click on once they've settled in and they have a working computer, right? And I will say one of the things that we have learned and implemented, also one of the challenges that we face in the last few years, is that because our culture is so we are intentional about being authentic and really connecting with each other on a human level. What do you do when your company doubles in size? What do you do when growth starts to come at you quick? And we realized that that super hyper personalization is not scalable. What do you do then? And how do you find that balance? Because onboarding is not a one size fits all. So how do you scale and keep that human aspect? And so we were excited to actually start this program of culture ambassadors where it's folks that have gone through our program. They've been at Sprinklr anywhere from 6 months to 9 years, and they just care about people and they want to build connections. They volunteer to come back and be a part of the programming and help folks along the way, which is really great. And we're actually working on transitioning that into an onboarding buddy program, which is in the works.
I was going to ask you, so
Oh, yeah.
is that like an onboarding buddy program on the central onboarding team? But what are they doing now, like when they're cultural ambassadors, and how do you see them evolving in terms of that role that they're going to be playing?
Yeah, so right now, an example of how our ambassadors would show up is picture you come to Splash, you're on a call. Originally, our Splash program would be, we would max out around 35 to 40 people, and maybe not even that much. We would maybe max out around 30 to 35 people. And we would, during the introductions, we would go through and we would have people introduce themselves to the whole group. We then transitioned to having groups of 50 or 60 or sometimes even all the way up to 130 people on one call. And if they are all taking the time to introduce themselves, it's going to take half the allotted time for our program. So the ambassadors come in and they introduce themselves, and then we put them in breakout rooms where we still have somebody that is dedicated to driving the conversation, making sure people are where they're supposed to be, they're comfortable, the conversation is guided in the right direction, but they're in groups of 6 people or sometimes up to 11 or 12 people. But we try not to go bigger than that because we want people to really meet each other and connect with each other. And they often will talk about what's a connection in your life that you consider to be a really high quality connection, and what makes that connection high quality, and really just having these authentic, genuine conversations with each other. And one of my favorite things that actually happened during one of those calls, so they go into their breakout rooms, they talk about this high quality connection, and then we come back and we'll ask a few people, what were some of the common themes, or who were the people in your life that you tagged as your high quality connection? And one of our ambassadors came off mute, and he had been at Sprinklr for, I want to say 7 or 8 years at the time. And he said that his high quality connection was actually somebody that he met in Splash when he first started at the company 8 years prior. And he really emphasized that this was somebody that was a very important connection to him. And because he was able to make that connection during our program, he was able to leverage that relationship later on. And this became a very important person to him in his life. And it was such a great moment to see that the intention behind the program and what we're trying to do here is really working.
That's amazing that when people are getting onboarded, there's this openness to creating new networks and new connections and really designing that program in a way that enables people to do what they naturally want to do, really
Right.
like gets you results. And I also noticed that you're using words like breakout rooms, and so you're kind of leading a group of a few people together, almost like a mini cohort, and having more facilitators off the ground to help you enable that. But then a full-on onboarding buddy program tends to be more one-to-one, where there's like this guidance, opportunity, and value for both types of programs. And one question I had, just thinking about the Sprinklr Happier program, and then the fact that you're talking about breakouts, some of this is in the context of remote work, I would imagine, right? How the onboarding program is happening and it's evolving. The mental health investment with the Sprinklr Happier, it's generally useful, but I think even more pronounced, the research has shown, especially for remote companies. But also some of these things around creating connections, which are super important. It's also more challenging, but that's the intent behind the cultural ambassador program that you're talking about. So I'm curious more broadly if there's any observations you have or any ideas about how remote work has impacted your work around onboarding and getting people really into the company.
Yeah, man. And it has been quite a journey. Our programming is still completely remote. We do have, at Sprinklr, we offer a lot of flexibility in terms of um, if people are required to come into office, if you're hybrid, if you're remote. For the most part, with the exception of a few roles that are required in person, we let people choose what makes the most sense for them. And because of that, for example, in the United States, we have something like 700-ish remote employees that are nowhere near a Sprinklr office. And so that is why we have, especially in the last few years, really leaned into making sure that people feel connected. We know there's nothing like seeing somebody in person, meeting in person, grabbing a beer or giving somebody a hug. Those types of moments can't be fully replaced. But I am really proud of the focus and the amount of investment that we make in helping people feel connected and making sure that even if you're remote, you still have close-knit relationships and people that you can lean on within the company.
Hey, it's Thomas here. Hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Are you curious to see how your onboarding program stacks up against the industry's best? Check out Cleary's latest onboarding assessment tool. It offers in-depth analysis and customized recommendations to enhance every aspect of your employee onboarding, from pre-boarding to company culture integration and more. Whether you're just setting up your onboarding program or you're a CHRO at a Fortune 100 company, this assessment can improve your onboarding know-how. Check it out at gocleary.com/onboarding-assessment. Again, that's gocleary.com/onboarding-assessment. You can also find the link in the episode notes. Now back to the show.
Yes.
Kaylee, could you tell me a little bit more about the Sprinklr Happier program?
When you're going through the program, you have several different types of activities that are a part of the program that encourage you to activate different parts of your brain and your body. So there are 3 types of exercises that employees will go through. They focus on your mind, your body, and your external environment. So how this shows up throughout the program is it gives a guided method for taking what we call micro breaks or peak performance breaks, where for just a few minutes of your day, you tune into your program and you will do a 16-second breathing exercise, for example. Or you will spend a few minutes cleaning off your desktop as your external environment activity. There are different ways to activate your body through stretching and different exercises that way. So throughout the Happier program, you have each day one of each of those 3 types of exercises to do. One for your mind, one for your body and one for your external environment. And the hope is by doing one of each of those, they each take about 3 minutes. You then have a toolbox full of different exercises that you can then implement into your day-to-day routine.
That's great. So then let me explore a little bit with you behind the scenes, because we all know that onboarding is a team sport. Could you just describe for me structurally, like what kind of folks are you working with in the background to enable onboarding at Sprinklr?
Yeah, this is actually one of the things I love the most is the cross-functional partnership that I get to work with so many different people from different areas of the business. So we are really closely connected with IT, with our recruiting team, our benefits team, our enablement and productivity team, which is responsible for the customer facing teams and their kind of departmental training. And I would say, I mean, when all is said and done, our onboarding team works cross-functionally with probably close to 15 or 20 different teams on some level. And it's really great because I've been at Sprinklr for just over 3 years now. And so I've worked on a lot of different projects and had the opportunity to really develop relationships of my own with those cross-functional partners. And it's fun to get things done with them and to create a seamless onboarding experience.
So actually, I'd love to explore in detail the enablement element, because, often there's the cultural and HR onboarding, and there's a handoff, which we talked about a little bit before. And especially for a go-to-market organization, you might have a well-oiled machine, hopefully at some scale, and there's a lot of resources and training. Is that just a clean handoff where there's week 1 and then week 2, week 3, and then maybe you come back for the central thing later on? Or is that nuanced where, depending on the employee in that sales or which sales order, you might have custom pathways for how that first month could look for them?
Yeah, so the ideal situation is that there is a really clean handoff from one to the other. And I mean down to we have the same email banners, but their team is just a different color. They're able to know that splash culture comes right before splash field, where they get a little more specific, and then they fully branch out into their own role. And we also, from kind of the back end, are really careful about aligning our calendars. So it is a seamless process. They come to culture and talent for 2 days, and then they're off into their customer facing. It's all of the customer facing teams in one session, and then they break them down more and more.
That is fascinating attention to detail. So the branding and colors, and obviously the name of the programs, as well as just calendaring, right?
Yeah.
Is only even more important for remote employees, because
Yeah.
you might get lost in the office and someone could point you like where you need to be. A new person doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing at a given moment. So it's probably fair to say that the calendar is pretty well spoken for in the first few weeks across the different handoffs and across the different programs.
Right.
So if I were to ask you to kind of look into the future, like what's next? There's always things that you're tweaking and improving and adding in new programs or editing current ones. What's on the horizon for you?
Yeah, so we are working on our onboarding buddy program right now, which we are hoping to leverage some of the insights we've gotten from our culture ambassadors and build this really robust match of someone who's been at Sprinklr for a little while. Once you've done ramping in your role, you sign up to be an onboarding buddy, and you are then assigned 2 new hires. And then you're assigned an onboarding buddy to help kind of, to your point from earlier, we can't be everywhere at once. Our team has 5 people on it. And so when we're bringing in anywhere from 20 to 40 people on one day, the onboarding buddies will be a really strong addition to helping them through, not as a mentor, not as a leader, just as someone who, hey, yeah, I was in your shoes 6 months ago or 9 months ago or a year ago. So we're really excited to be rolling that out sometime in the next quarter. And the other thing, we want to go back in person at least sometime. Maybe it's just that 2 days of our splash program in person. We want people to be able to meet in person and have a really exciting celebration and welcome into the company. So we've got some plans, we've got some playbooks put together for it, but right now is just not the right time, but hopefully it will be soon.
That's exciting and speaks to the broader evolution of probably how work itself is evolving well beyond onboarding at Sprinklr and across the board. So with that said, Haley, are you ready for us to go into a lightning round?
Let's do it.
All right, we're going to start off with some easy ones.
Yellow.
Okay. How long have you been in your current role?
I have been at Sprinklr for about 3 years.
Okay. If you weren't working in HR, what else could you be doing?
I would definitely see myself on stage somewhere or working in hospitality.
So let me ask you about what is the best piece of advice you've ever received about your career or about in HR?
I would say a really great piece of advice I have gotten is don't tell stories. If you have blanks in a situation, don't try and fill them in on your own. Especially in HR, we need the facts. And so don't ever assume, don't ever try and fill in the blanks. We need to see things with as much truth and clarity as possible.
I love that. What do you enjoy most about your current role?
Gosh, I love the people. Everyone's like, oh, I love the people. I get kind of both working internally, cross-functionally. I've developed some really great relationships and friendships with my cross-functional partners, but also facilitating and leading sessions and welcoming people kind of scratches the performance itch a little bit that I have of being able to tell stories and spend time with people in that way.
It's actually related to that. If you were going to give one piece of advice for folks who are in the trenches like you, who are also working on creating amazing onboarding experiences, do you have anything that comes to mind?
I would say realizing that you have to meet the moment as business priorities change, as there are changes happening all over, even just more broadly in the job market. Things are changing. The tech world is changing. Everything is changing constantly. What's the saying that the only thing that we can be certain of is that things are going to change. And so being ready to hear people and to listen to what the needs are and to be able to adjust quickly and meet people where they are.
Well, thank you so much, Kaylee, for sharing all of your valuable insights and experiences and really delving into the details about how you're enabling this awesome onboarding program out there. And to all our listeners out there, we hope you found this discussion as enlightening as I did. Stay tuned for more episodes of All On Board. We'll continue to explore effective strategies and challenges in the employee onboarding process. Thanks again, Kaylee.
Thanks so much, Thomas. It's been great.
Hey, it's Thomas here. Welcome to the Thomas's Take portion of the show, where I share a take or two about the discussion from this week's episode. Now, Sprinklr Happier, this program designed to help employees get to peak performance, it really stood out from this episode. It's wonderful to see a company invest in the holistic health of employees at some scale. This kind of work is typically reserved for executives. Everyone knows about executive coaches and CEO coaches out there. Or maybe you're thinking of Wendy Rhodes, that character from the show Billions, someone who exhorts peak performance from fund managers whose immense talent is only matched by their anxiety issues. But can we take some of those ideas for just about everyone in their work life I think the answer is yes. Now, that's all good, but I think the larger point might be that it could not be right for your company. The larger point is that every company has to figure out what is important, so important to them, coaching for peak performance in this case, as something that is authentically important to their culture, their values, and honestly specific individuals on the leadership team. So important that they want to disseminate it publicly and loudly to all those joining the organization, even in the first few weeks. Now, why do something like this in an onboarding program? Why not wait a few months to serve your organization's particular flavor of Kool-Aid? Well, my mind goes to the concept of habit loops, something I was first exposed to when I read a book by Charles Duhigg called The Power of Habit. And it talks all about how we spend most of our time with this reptilian brain where we're not actively thinking about what we're doing and we're just acting on a bunch of shortcuts that we've built up over time through cues like wash my face in the morning, and then leading to a behavior like I'm going to make my cup of coffee, and leading to a reward. Feel great, nourished, ready to take on the day. Now, you can make and remake habits, of course, by actively thinking about what you replace that action with. For example, replacing that coffee after you wash your face with something lower calf after you realize maybe 4 is too much for the day if you want to sleep well at night. But beyond that type of habit change, something that really sets you up for habit changes is any kind of major change in life. This resets a whole bunch of new cues holistically. So moving to a new home or city, going to a new school, a new roommate, and of course, a new job. These are moments that reset what you see or do the first time you leave the house, or when class starts, or how you might split up chores. Or of course, in the work world, the examples are innumerable. How you work and interact with others. But to me, a major change in life resets a whole bunch of new cues. For example, moving to a new home or city, going to a new school, having a new roommate, and of course, a new job. These are moments that reset what you see or do for the first time you leave the house, or when class starts, or how you might split up chores. And of course, in the work world, how you work and interact with others. New habits are forced to be formed because, well, this new role requires me to be in person 2 times a week versus what I used to do before, or expects daily updates in a certain format, which is making me rethink how I do everything else. Now, people will bring their habits to a new job. You want that to happen, of course. That's partially why you hired them to begin with. But to get everyone in sync, it's good to teach them what's important to you from the very first days, for everyone's sake.